With a new minimum wage of 70,000 naira announced by the federal government, Nigerians have continued to react to the figure, with many saying it's just not enough. Now, while President Tinubu had promised a reduced timeline for the review of the country's wage structure to every 3 years as opposed to the initial 5 years, questions of whether the government would keep to its own end of the bargain due to previous encounters with the organized labor is raising a cloud of doubt in the minds of many. Well, hello there and welcome to Sunday Politics on Trust TV. My name is Sagir Ibrahim, standing in for your regular host, Abdullahi Ahmed. Now, here's excerpts to refresh your memory on how we got to the 70,000 naira wage.
On June 25, the Federal Executive Council stepped down deliberations on the new minimum wage memo to allow President Bola Tinubu to engage with stakeholders ahead of a planned executive bill. Recommendations were based on the submissions by federal, state governments and the organized private sector. What was left was to get organized labor on board, and the meeting between the union leaders and the president last Thursday ended without an agreement. The reconvened meeting this Thursday has, however, achieved the desired result.
We're happy to announce today that both the federal government and the organized labor have agreed on an increase on the 62,000 naira minimum wage. The new national minimum wage that we expect Mr. President to submit to the National Assembly for legislation is 70,000 naira.
The review of this minimum wage policy has to be reduced to 3 years. That is, 5 years is too long a time to get any minimum wage review that is not very wealthy. And of course, that labor should look at the indices of the economy and accept 70,000 naira minimum wage.
The labor leaders agreed that the proviso that minimum wage would now be reviewed every 3 years was the swaying factor.
What they have announced in terms of the amount of 70,000 happened to be where we are now. So now. But the good thing about it is that we will not wait for another 5 years to come and review. Rather than accepting on a figure that you wait for 5 years, it's like you have to now negotiate even 2 times within 5 years.
In an era where things are moving very fast in terms of both macro and microeconomic policies, but with also the caveat that this is going to be done every 3 years. 3 years. The next review will be 3 years, and after that pronouncement, we from Labour, just has been said as well, we have received what the president has promised from both ends.
Meanwhile, also thrown into the deal by the president was that the relevant ministers would work out modalities to pay salaries to members of SANU and NASU to prevent industrial action on tertiary institutions.
We made a case for them that the president should, as a father of the nation, should look at it compassionately and do and so that we'll not have a case where universities will be closed again.
Magnanimously, he asked the agencies concerned to work out the modalities for the payment.
The labor leaders say they have listened to the president's pronouncement on the new minimum wage with mixed feelings and will now take the president's proposal back to their constituents to get their buy-in. However, it is safe to conclude they have accepted the new wage, and all that is left is for the president to send an executive bill to the National Assembly for it to be passed into law.
Oh, promises, promises, and more promises. But is this enough? Well, economic analysts have linked the removal of petrol subsidy and the unification of the exchange rate as the direct culprits responsible for the exponential rise in the price of commodities. To cushion these effects, of course, the federal government had rolled out several palliative measures. But it's an open secret that many feel that also fell short of expectation as well. Tonight on the program, to provide perspective to the discussion and, of course, much more developments in the polity, I have with me in the studio a journalist, communications professional, and the public affairs commentator, Abdullahi Haruna, popularly known as Haruspice. Welcome to the program, Haruspice.
Thank you very much, Sergio. It's my pleasure to be here.
Some people will be wondering why Haruspice is adorning an attire that has tiger on it. Well, congratulations to Haruspice. Haruspice was coronated as the Oma Eju Ejegaku. I hope I got that correctly.
Yes,
but then back to the discussion. It's been close to a week now since the new minimum wage came on board, providing enough time for Nigerians to form an opinion on whether this indeed is going to stand the test of time. What's your assessment of what Nigerians are saying, on this development?
First of all, we should applaud the government for being responsive towards the plight of the Nigerian workers by responding swiftly to their demands, somehow halfway, even though it's not a full expectation, but at least there is a meeting point that has just happened. So other than that, the reality is that nothing really has changed because the minimum wage will have little or no effect on the income or otherwise lifestyle of the average Nigerian worker. Because with a rise in salary or wages comes, an exponential rise in the prices of food and other commodities that are essential for human survival. So it's more like a ripple effect. Rather than celebrating a rise in salaries or in wages, as the case may be, I think we should go to the fundamental root causes of what will make food prices very expensive in the market. So why are we greeted with these, excruciating economic realities? This is what we should be talking about. And this is, clinically linked to the hasty removal of the subsidies on petroleum products. Because whether you like it or not, our lives as Nigerians revolves around transportation, revolves around the power generating sets that we use for our small businesses. A policy on this product will automatically affect every of our livelihood, and this is why we are where we are today. The president, in his own ingenuity, excellently announced the removal of the fuel subsidy on the day he assumed office.
Indeed.
Something funny, but very, it's a reality that happened that very day. Those who traveled from, let's say, Maraba to the Eagle Square actually paid their fare for 200 naira. By the time the president made his announcement removing subsidy on petroleum products, by the time they were going back, the price of their transportation has actually increased to about 1,000 naira. This tells you what policy statement does. And ever since, we've not recovered from the rising prices of livelihood in Nigeria, and will continue to have it. 70,000 naira, beautiful, but what would that buy in the market? A tuber of yam goes for 6,000 naira. A mudu of gari goes for 3,000 naira. You have to transport, you have to pay rent, electricity bill has been hiked, and so are other, taxable commodities.
But then again, Haruspice, I mean, the government has mentioned a couple of measures that it's going to be rolling out to, in order to cushion the effect of these subsidies. Quite recently, I mean, the federal government said it would be, distributing around 60 trucks of fertilizer, across the 36 states of the Federation, expectedly to ramp up production of food, in the country. However, I want your assessment as to whether, rolling out of palliatives to Nigerians at this time will yield the effect that, the president and by extension the federal government want, in spite of, the previous ones that were done, and of course, some would say it wasn't as successful as they would say.
Like I said earlier, nothing has really changed. There were palliative measures, social safety provisions before now. You had the Empower, the trader money, the market women money, the graduate scheme, funds. Those are measures to ameliorate, the hardship faced by Nigeria. It didn't start with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. We've had it during the government of President Muhammadu Buhari, so it's not new. But what we're saying is that it's putting the cart before the horse. There should have been measures, these beautiful measures that cropping up left, right, and center should have actually existed before announcing the removal. It should have been a gradual process. You don't just come and make a policy statement. It has that effect. I know as much as the president and his economic teams are trying to salvage the situation, things keeps getting worse. And we are greeted with more harsh realities. So that is why, okay, fertilizers to farmers, will you plant today and harvest tomorrow? No, it takes a period. It's it's a seasonal disposition that farmers will have to. You have to till the land, plant, and apply fertilizer. Fertilizer is not the end of it. So in between now and the harvesting period, how would Nigerians survive? Okay, you're sharing palliatives in terms of rice and the rest of it. So why are you taking the effort of spending more money to buy rice that you give to Nigerians as palliative? Why not slash, the subsidy regime, the subsidy payment? Why not slash it perhaps to have, bring down the cost of petroleum product to have, so that the effect on the people will reduce. That maximum effects on the people would reduce. But now you're using money. You're spending money that you don't have to provide palliative. So why not channel this money to subsidizing the petroleum product, whether you like it or not? Because this is what we are faced with. We're not a producing nation.
But I'm surprised. A lot of Nigerians applauded the president's announcement on May 29, announcing the removal of the fuel subsidy. Yes. They described it as a welcome development. Maybe they didn't expect, this kind of ripple effect. Probably because, like you said, maybe the governments were not as prepared as they made us think that they were, before all of this happened. But by and large, that has happened. And we've seen since then, other developments. So, for example, the Dangote refinery coming on stream, but it's also bedeviled with its own challenges, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, planning is critical in governance. No matter how lofty and beautiful an idea is, it should be subjected to some trials, some piloting situation. But in this case of the hasty removal of the subsidy, that wasn't the plan. That is why government officials are running around trying to, cushion the effect that has come with this removal. When you go to the streets, you understand what we're talking. It's not the economic matrix. It's not the indices that we're talking about. We're talking about the reality on ground. Why a single policy decision, it's unsettling a nation. And the insecurity is on the rise because people are finding it difficult to feed. When you have your money, inflation rate is actually depleting making nonsense of your money, and people are really suffering. And so to address this issue, it's not the policy. You are actually administering this on people. What has been the reaction? There's nothing wrong in withdrawing what has been presented. Let me tell you, no government decision is ever bad, but the timing sometimes defines the implications. As we have seen, obviously, something is wrong with the removal of the subsidy. So why can't we go back to the drawing board and say, okay, in the interim, I think we should put up the social safety nets that will address the eventual removal of the subsidy. In the next maybe 1-2 years, we'll do that. You announce, prepare the people's mind that this is what will happen. At that time, you will have actually prepared sufficiently for your food, safety. Your employment rates would have been addressed. Everything would have been working. You've prepared the people's mind. Those you want them to go to the farm would have gone back to the farm. Those you want to be engaged in this would have been doing that. But you just woke up one day and say, it's gone. And now, like the rain, we are being drenched batteredly by this decision.
Well, the chief there saying, giving so much words of proverbs there, and then again talking about insecurity, talking about the rising cost of food commodities in the market. The other day, senators at the National Assembly were quite vocal about the rising cost of food items, the scarcity of food and other commodities in the market. Here's some excerpt from a motion which was moved by Senator Steve Karimi representing Kogi State. Take a look. Food insecurity and market exploitation of consumables in Nigeria was moved by Senator Karimi Steve, Kogi West, on the hunger that Nigerians continue to bear due to the exorbitant cost of food commodities occasioned by skyrocketing food inflation in Nigeria. Senator Karimi also revealed how the activities of unscrupulous food merchants further worsened the food crisis.
Concerned that the greater percentage of the increase in price of food items and consumables in the country is not only due to these factors, but to the sales of merchant traders and retailers to make supernormal profit, while they excuse the hike in prices on these factors, that is depreciation of naira, increase in prices of petroleum products, and insecurity in farming regions, thereby heaping the blame on the federal government.
Other contributors called for urgent measures to ease the hardship on their constituents.
As it is now, a bag of rice is selling at about 100,000. A bag of maize, the same thing. Even prices of tomatoes, onions, and other basic food is high. Distinguished colleagues, as representatives of the people, we need to do something.
The executive arm of government is saying, is considering reducing or removing taxes on imported foodstuff. Mr. President, here's the catch. This Senate must engage the executive immediately. What are the issues? Which taxes are they talking about? We have really little or nothing in our food reserve across the country. And nobody should come and tell us they will distribute foodstuff from our silos. The silos are empty.
Nigerians cannot suffer from hunger while the government has the capacity to ameliorate the situation. By removing import duties on all the food items, it's a way to flood the market and flood the country with food, with cheap and affordable food.
Meanwhile, the plenary went into another round of arguments when Senator Adamu Alero of Kebbi Central called for the intervention of the Senate President regarding the distribution of 2 trucks of fertilizers allocated to them by the federal government for this year's planting season.
What is happening is that only governors are given the fertilizer. Senators are yet to get a single bag of fertilizer. And there is need.
It is going to the
Mr.
governor.
President, there is need for you to intervene, to call the Minister of Agriculture and tell him to immediately authorize the distribution of fertilizer to all the senatorial districts. This is the season we need the fertilizer. If it doesn't come now, it's as good as not having it at all.
The Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, called the attention of the Chairman, Committee on Agriculture, to provide clarification.
We had hitches from the NSA's office. They stopped every truck of fertilizer from moving out because of the security implication. They had to certify clear before they will allow the trucks to move out. So, sir, I want us to exercise patience. By weekend, I'm sure everybody or most people will have received their supplies. Please.
You know, they like me, quoting me. They will say Akpabio again. This is from the Senate Committee Chairman on Agriculture. Not from Senator Akpabio. That irrespective of political party, each state governor is going to get at least 60 trucks immediately. And the reason why they are giving to senators 2 trucks is because some of the state governors and House of Rep members, 1 truck for your constituents, is because some of the state governors are not in the same party with you. So they may get and they may not really look at your constituents.
Upon conclusion of the debate, the Senate consolidated all the prayers from Senator Karimi's motion and appealed to the government to, as a matter of urgency, ease the plight of Nigerians. Oh, there you have it. Calls for an immediate intervention from the federal government as regards to the plight of, Nigerians, especially with the rising cost of food and other commodities in the market, mentioning the distribution of fertilizers across the 36 states of the Federation, including for senators and House of Representatives members. Haru Spice, you watched this report. I mean, you saw the concern on the faces of these lawmakers. 100,000 naira or thereabout for a bag of rice. Similarly, for a bag of beans, it goes way higher. However, some have expressed their own concerns with regards to these lawmakers being responsible for the reasons why Nigerians cannot benefit as much from the government. Talk about billions allocated for SUVs and other, bonuses and the likes of that they receive, and then Nigerians are meant to cope with a paltry 70,000 naira. What comes to your mind?
There's what they call optics. What you present as a public official will be the determinant of how the citizens sees you. The lifestyles of our public officials has really not been encouraging. They've not been that alignment to the reality on ground. We've not seen them identifying with the people, giving them hope that indeed with time we shall overcome this together. How can you give hope to a downtrodden, somebody that hasn't eaten for a day, and you are driving in a jeep, wearing the best of clothing, parading around in the best restaurants, having the graduation ceremonies of your children in foreign universities? How would that kind of a person actually inspire hope or douse tension, the looming tension that we're being faced with? So it's good that they're actually crying out a bag of rice. It's around 100,000 naira, and minimum wage is 70,000 naira. Of course. Okay, that's actually the lamentable irony of the Nigerian situation. A bag of rice goes for 100. The minimum wage is 70,000 naira. We're not talking about the health implications. We're not talking about transportation. We're not talking about other things. You must make do with that 70,000. That is for the employed. What about the unemployed?
And whether it's going to be implemented, because the state governments are still saying that, we don't think that we can. The organized private sector is there.
So when you begin to see the reality on ground, there's this feeling of hopelessness that greets you. Recently I watched on the social media of how it's having member of the House of Representatives actually proudly, gloatedly went on air, saying that he's dashed a Lexus Jeep, a Lexus SUV to a less than 18-year-old girl who has done him proud by graduating from secondary school.
Who is this girl to him?
His daughter, actually.
Interesting.
So which is actually, every father should actually dote on his daughter or children. That is fine. But we should look at the timing. The sensitivity of a leader is shown during a period of crisis. Such leadership should not manifest now so much that you could, glowingly parading, telling us that this is what you bought for your daughter. And we're talking about an SUV that should cost about maybe over 50 million naira, in a country where we are fighting to have minimum wage, over to 100,000, and somebody is getting this to a. So now it speaks of our leadership courage. What is our level of empathy for our people? What is our emotional intelligence? Why do we do what we do as leaders? There's what they call sacrifice. When leaders begin to sacrifice by their own personal disposition, the citizens would naturally take a cue. There's nothing wrong in coming out to say, okay, in the next 5 months, we're not going to take salaries. Our allowances should be slashed so that Nigerians can actually begin to breathe. The president, in his famous saying, is that do not choke the poor.
The poor breathe.
Let the poor breathe. Now, the way it is now, the poor are not breathing. The air is so offensive, it's so chaotic, it's so excruciating that they can't even breathe. So as leader, it's not about the president, it's about the other leaders. What are you doing to ameliorate the pains of your people? The governors, what are you doing? The local government chairman, what are you doing? The lawmakers, what are we doing? Collectively, we're supposed to come together and address this. Not to sound as an alarmist, there's this looming tension about a protest coming. We need to nip that in the...
We'll get to the conversation of that protest, yes, of course, but talking about what leaders are supposed to do in terms of sensitivity and sensibility to the situation and the sacrifices that they should put forth, you know, because their followers are watching. I mean, it's not been all of them, right? Isn't it? Yeah. There's been a couple of dissenting voices in the National Assembly. A couple of them, I would say. Of course,
there will always be those who stand in exception. And a reference is the man from Borno,
Senator Ali
Ndome.
There's also Senator Ahmed Ningi at some point.
Yes, Ningi, even though he was almost silenced to dead silence.
Okay.
you know, and again, these are politicians. How sure are you that they haven't seen the handwriting on the wall and they are trying to navigate, to stand, you know, for
navigating
the people,
away from the turbulence.
For the turbulence. You know, life is all about survival. The swift will always win. And Ndume is a political strategist that knows how to navigate his way. He's been like this all through since his ascension or adventure into the political terrain. He's always had one or two issues with the leadership of either the House or the Senate.
But then how would you describe, I mean, the aftermath of, you know, the decision to stand for the people? Ningi did so. I mean, the end was obvious. We all know how that ended. Ndume did the same thing, complaining and saying that, look, I mean, the statement was, this is a kakistocracy and we might be having a government that is riddled with kleptocrats. And we saw the repercussion of that statement. He was removed as the majority whip of the Senate. So does this sort of send a message that maybe this administration is not one who is open to positive or, you know, criticism as it may be?
Yeah, I think we should narrow it to the Senate, not the administration.
I mean, there's already insinuations that the Senate is rubber stamp at this point. Not my words.
Yeah, but in this context, you know, we like to generalize realities in Nigeria. Let's hit the nail on the head. Where is this autocratic disposition coming from? From the Senate. So let's leave let's leave whatever will happen, whether there is somebody beating a drum, and look at where the action happens.
Now let's talk about the Senate.
The Senate, you know, it happened with Abdul Nengi from Bauchi, and now it's happening to Ndume. It actually portends a failing of an autocratic disposition by the leadership of the Senate. This time around, hiding under the canopy of the party, the All Progressive Congress, saying that this is actually, it came from them. And so therefore, the decision to dislodge Ndume must actually happen. And now, what happens to leadership in closed door? What happens to calling Ndume to the bedroom of logic and dialogue? Why are you out there, you know, berating the administration that you so fought to have? Settle it first. If he repeats whatever it is, you can actually wade the big hammer. But one day we just woke up and it's you know, a letter from the Senate, from the party announcing the dislodgement of Ndume. That to me, I'd say a party that is really not on ground to actually settle its matter. The PDP way, they call it family matter. You know, they have a way of settling themselves. So coming up, you have the majority in the Senate and you're doing this, it doesn't portend that it's a synergy. It's like they are not together for them to be having these discordant tones. The opposition figures are not talking. It is the...
They've been awfully silent.
Yes. So the opposition figures are not talking. It shows that there's actually an end to opposition in this administration or in this regime. So I'm not surprised. Perhaps they've seen reason why they shouldn't talk. And again, for the few who are talking, I think they should be allowed to talk. They should be allowed to breathe. This is the beauty of democracy. It's not what they are primarily doing.
Okay.
It's the exchange of ideas.
Okay.
It helps governance. When people disagree, it's not done out of malice. It's usually done to strengthen and sustain governance, good governance. So I think the hasty decision of the Senate President to dislodge Ndume, to me, it's not too palatable as far as democratic ideals are concerned. There should have been a way around it. But it has happened. It has happened.
It has happened. It has happened indeed. If you're just joining, this is Sunday Politics on Trust TV. The phone lines will now be open for you to call in to contribute. Tell us those comments, those concerns, and those contributions that you have with regards to the development. There's a new minimum wage in Nigeria. It's 70,000 naira. And the question of whether this is going to be enough to cater for a family for the month is what's on the table. Do well to call in with your thoughts, your comments on the development. Haruna Spice, back to the conversation. I mean, there's been this issue. So let me give an example. There's been this general saying that the reason why we've seen some of our forcemen, behaving the way that they behave sometimes is because, they're poorly paid. Their remuneration is just poor. But then again, here we are, 70,000 naira for civil servants. There's concern that it might, in one way or the other, ramp up the issues and cases of corruption that, we've continued to experience in the civil service.
The best way to deal with corruption is, ensuring that social justice prevails. The institutions that constitute governance works. You're not supposed to, because you're poorly paid, you're not supposed to have that as a yardstick for you to be corrupt as a civil servant. It's never provided anywhere in law or in the book of common sense or human existence. What we should collectively advocate for is for the right things to be done in terms of provision of the ideals that governance comes with. When you have excellent transport system, good sound health provisions, robust security architecture, agricultural revolution, food security and the rest of it, there wouldn't be need for people to begin to amass wealth in the name of trying to sustain their tomorrow. What we should be looking at, let social justice prevail so that we have everything for everybody. Then we'll now see who will indulge in corruption. Then the law will come severely on him or her. That is the way out. Because you can be paying somebody $1 million monthly and he has access to the public coffer and he will still be
tendency of corruption.
So being poorly paid is not an excuse to be corrupt.
Okay, so now I think we have a caller this evening. Good evening, welcome to Sunday Politics. What's your name and where are you calling from? Hello, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
What's your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Jonathan. I'm calling from Taraba State.
Jonathan from Taraba, welcome to the program. Please proceed with your contributions. Jonathan, can you hear me?
The issue of minimum wage, to me, yes, I can hear you.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
I'm seeing it as not too important. What I'm thinking, the poor people are suffering because the fuel has been a source of problem. People that are earning salaries, the poor ones that are not working, how are they going to survive?
Go ahead, Jonathan, I can hear you.
So my take was to reduce the price of the fuel, not salary increase or minimum wage.
All right, Jonathan, thank you so much for your contribution on the development. Haruna Spice, Jonathan is blaming directly the cost of fuel as the reason why Nigerians might have found themselves in this situation. Now, it reminds me of something. I think the government at that time had revealed that we're spending around 6 trillion, to subsidize these commodities. But then again, here we are, the federal government saying we need to add an extra 6.2 trillion or thereabouts to capture the new minimum wage. So I don't know whether this brings up some kind of but let me hold your thoughts. We have another caller on the line. Good evening, welcome to Sunday Politics. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hello? Yes.
Hello, good evening.
Hello?
Good evening, I can hear you. What's your name?
My name is Ngobat Peter. I'm calling from Benue State.
Peter from Benue State, if I heard you right. Please proceed.
Yes. Yes. How are you?
Very well. Go ahead, Peter.
What we are discussing is right, but my problem is, hello?
Go ahead, Peter. We can hear you.
The problem we are having today, the government know all the truth. They know the problem of that they know all we are passing through. What we are passing through today is because of the cost of fuel. Let them bring the price of fuel down so that things will work very well. They know all the problems, but their job is around the bush. They know all the problems. There's no way. Let's tell ourselves the truth. Let's tell ourselves the truth. They know. They don't beat around the bush because it does not concern them. It's only the communities that are suffering this country today. They are there, reaching themselves. But let them know that they must give account of whatever they are doing in this world. Yes, let them know that. They are suffering people. Look at how Nigerians are not stable. Look at problems everywhere. They are the cause.
Indeed, Peter. Thank you so much. I hear the frustration in your voice, and definitely, I do hope that they tell themselves the truth like you have requested. Peter calling all the way from Benue State with his contribution on the program. Harris Spice, what do you make of that development?
If sampling reference is anything to go by, you can gauge the feelings of Nigerians so far. Somebody called from Taraba, then from Benue, saying the same thing that earlier reiterated, that there should be a review, a downward review, of course, of this subsidy removal to see how that can actually bring down the cost of living. What the common man is interested in, how is this ease of life first, then all other things can actually come in. But we're in a situation where they can't even breathe because of the high cost of everything. It will definitely drive everybody crazy. So with what they have said and with what I have said, I think the government is a listening government. President Ahmed Bola Tinubu is a listening president. I think they should look into it again and see how we can actually begin to subsidize this.
But I think you should also mention that you're not a spokesperson of the government, so nobody mistakes you for...
No.
Indeed.
So I'm speaking as a Nigerian. They can actually listen to the plight of the people. The people are actually crying. Let's see how we can make life easier. If you're spending so much to increase minimum wage...
Let me hold your thoughts. Let me hold your thoughts because we have another caller, a Nigerian who, of course, is concerned about the development. Good evening and welcome to Sunday Politics. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hello.
Hello, good evening. I can hear you. Please proceed.
Hello.
Hello, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Good evening.
Your name and your location, please.
My name is Hussein. I'm calling from Zaria.
Hussein from Zaria. Go ahead with your contribution.
I think my own personal view, this issue of minimum wage, if we look at the percentage of people who are beneficiaries of a government work, what the government is supposed to do is to be all-inclusive in carrying every Nigerian along when it comes to the issue of some economic policies. Because it is as if the government is only concerned about those who are working with either state or federal governments. And almost like 90 to 95% of people within the country are not directly employed by the government. And the issue of exchange rate, since we are import-dependent economy, I think the government needs to do more about that. And at the same time, I'm going along with the previous caller. This issue of a subsidy, removing it and still we don't have enough fuel around, and fuel price keep on fluctuating up and down. I think they need to also do more on that. Thank you.
Hussaini from Zaria, thank you so much for your contribution on the program. Yes, he sided with the previous caller, Peter, saying that it's now time for the government to maybe have a rethink and consider bringing back the subsidy, but then that's their contribution. House Spice, you heard them. I mean, they've removed the subsidy, and it's still difficult to find petrol, and it's still expensive. Some would say we now have a private player, one that is local, Dangote Refinery. He has on several occasions released statements, the Dangote Refinery, on how it has been difficult for them to, get access to crude. In this situation, saying that the IOCs might be frustrating their efforts. How do you respond to all of this?
This is like I said earlier, you should have put your house in order before experimenting a policy as dicey, as encompassing as this subsidy issue. Whatever it is, the success of this administration or any government, squarely lies around the price of petroleum product. Because that is what defines us primarily as a people. For you have to move. You must use this product.
Whether it's transporting services, goods.
The CNG reality hasn't come to bed per se. It's still a transitional decision. But again, as a government, if everything is in place, then you can actually encourage the private sector players to come in.
Let's put a pin on that there. We have another caller now. Good evening and welcome to Sunday Politics on Trust TV. Your name and where you calling from?
I'm calling from Niger.
Your name, sir?
My name is Comrade Sam Sham.
All right, Mr. Sam from Niger. Comrade Sam, please proceed with your contribution.
It's my pleasure meeting you.
Go ahead.
It's my pleasure speaking to you tonight.
My pleasure as well. Go ahead, Comrade Sam.
I work in oil sector as a laborer.
Okay.
Are you hearing me?
I can. Please proceed.
The issue of fuel subsidy. Hello?
I'm with you. Please just go ahead, Sam. I'm with you.
The tinubu to reduce the subsidy down to the common man.
Okay. Why do you say so, Sam? You said you work in the oil sector.
I have many reasons to tell you.
Please tell us one.
The 70,000 naira minimum wage. The 70,000 minimum wage. How much, if you want to buy pepper now, pepper now, 7 pepper, 200 naira. 7 pieces of pepper, 200 naira. Is it not from the minimum wage? Is it not from the minimum wage? Buy 1 yam. I hear one song with the man that is with you saying 1 piece of yam in Niger State here is 5,000.
That's a serious situation, Sam.
And if you have to collect 70,000 naira as a minimum wage, and you have 3 children, and they have to go to school, they have to pay school fees, you have to pay house rent, you have to transport them. Nigeria have 4 refineries. Nigeria have 4 refineries. 2 in Port Harcourt, 1 in Warri, 1 in Kaduna.
Sam, can you just go ahead?
Why are you depending on Dangote? Hello, sir. Why are you depending on Dangote?
Indeed.
Can you buy cement? Cement in Mina is 3,006. A bag of cement in Mina is 3,006. Can you build a house as a journalist?
Well, as a journalist, I can build a house, Sam.
Listen to me. It can favor you today. It cannot favor masses. By the time they pay, listen to me. Let me give you advice.
Okay, advise me. Advise me, Sam.
If they started paying minimum wage of 70,000, one piece of yam will go to 8,000. 1 piece of yam will go to 8,000. 12 pieces of pepper go to 300 naira.
Well, Sam, that's an unfortunate situation, and hopefully, we do hope that Sam, we hope that the government does something about the situation. But also, you also need to understand that other Nigerians want to call into the program and also share their thoughts on the development. Thank you so much, Sam, for calling all the way from Niger State. Sam is very vocal, and from his voice, you could hear.
It's a comrade.
You could hear the worry, in the minds of and in the voice of Comrade Sam. We have another caller, indeed. Good evening. Welcome to Sunday Politics. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Unfortunately, we would have to let you go because we can hear our voices on your TV set. So when you're calling in, please do well to turn down the volume of your TV set so that it doesn't interfere with the conversation. Else, we might not be able to hear you whilst you're talking. Hello? I think we still have him. Hello, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear clear and loud.
Your name?
Speaking Comrade Martins from Kwara State.
Okay, so we have another comrade on the show this evening. Comrade Martins, welcome.
Yes, of course, my dear. Now, I can say that the problem of Nigeria is not minimum wage.
So what's Nigeria's problem?
First and foremost is insecurity.
Okay.
Because those in township do not know what those in local area are passing through. So if Nigeria or Mr. President himself can put to an end the insecurity that is rocking the entire country, I believe something positive will come out.
Thank you very much,
farmers
Sam.
can't go to work because of insecurity.
All right, Sam. Thank you so much.
So that is one of the things that is facing the country.
All right.
And so the aspect of removing subsidy, Mr. President did not consider it proper, or maybe he was not advised before he embarked on that journey. Because I believe that before Mr. President embarked on such journey, he should have consulted the Senate for oversight in respect of that subsidy removal.
Okay, Sam. All right. Thank you very much, Sam. Thank you so much, Sam. You heard the contribution of Jonathan, Peter, Husseini, Sam, and also Martins. It's a similar...
It's unanimous.
Indeed. So, concluding thoughts.
It's one voice. We are concluding so soon.
well, the hour is gone and time has flown.
The beauty of this kind of interaction is not to vilify anybody or the government. It's to add to the conversation. It's to add to governance. I'm sure the handlers of the administration would have picked one or two impulses of the people, that this is what the people need at this point, not necessarily what we are doing. Well, the palliative options is more like we're trying to patch things, treat sores. That is not the issue. We should convert these monies that we're spending on palliatives, on minimum wage, and redirect it to subsidizing fuel.
So the subsidy should come back.
For the masses. The number one cardinal reason for existence is survival. And people survive when they eat. Without food, you can't actually think of patriotism. Nationalism will not run in you. So let's first of all secure the stomach infrastructure before we begin to talk of other indices. Otherwise, we'll continue to have crisis, which is what we really don't want to happen in Nigeria.
Indeed. Well, Harris has said it all. Indeed, if we don't address all of these issues, we might just end up having a full-blown crisis in our hands. The government is already contending with what they have described as a protest that might lead to a breakdown of law and order in terms of the end bad governance protest. Only time will tell, where this would lead. But then again, it's been an hour of conversing with you, talking about the developments in the polity, especially as it relates to the new minimum wage. Join us again next week, Sunday, as we bring you more topics on development in Nigeria's polity. Thank you so much for all those who called into the program. Join us again. At the top of the hour will be the news hour. My name is Sagir Ibrahim. Bye for now.